What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another episode of the Kingdom Says. I am your host, as always, Garrett Williams, and we are back with more prospect reviews tonight. On the board, we've got defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman, which is a very fun position to talk about, as always. Another trenches position, as it was last episode. Joining me, as always, is the full cast of characters of the Kingdom Says. We've got Kyle Henning at the top right. How you doing tonight, Kyle?
Doing all right. Ready to talk some big boys.
Nice. Good to hear. Glad to have you. Also joining us, the big boys, Thomas Pike, Arrowhead Tom. How are you?
I don't want to talk about those big boys. Not those. The other ones. The ones that are trying to get drafted. We don't have to talk about these two. We can skip both.
Hey, listen. We already established that Randy and I would be one hell of a guard and tackle combo. We could flip on the other side. We could play two ways, right?
I'd give you hell for 3 plays, easy.
Yeah. How about oxygen masks?
You're a three down lineman, huh? That's interesting.
I don't know if there's a lot of calling for a.
Gary, they're calling for 6 down linemen. They're saying they can play 3 downs on both sides of the ball, which would be first of all, you ain't playing 3 downs. You ain't playing 3 downs on one side of the ball, let alone both. But oxygen masks and maybe a gurney.
Travis Hunter has nothing on
the other way.
You
remember those? You remember those? Do you remember Toon Squad with the guys that run out with the little stretcher thing and they carry off the injured Toons after they got run over? Yeah.
Yes.
You two would have a couple of those standing next to you on the field at all times. We're gonna need these here in a second, so just hang out right here.
You know what, Garrett? I was doing pretty good until Kyle came for me and my
athleticism.
Sawed you down. No, I was feeling
maybe
pretty
good. Maybe next year we just get together. We can do a Kingdom Says combine episode.
Yeah. We can do Oklahoma drill.
I was just gonna suggest Oklahoma drills. Yeah, that would be.
I am once again fully okay with that.
You know what? We got to stop because you and I are technically the shortest members of the podcast.
I am the shortest.
Low man wins. I mean, right?
I know, but me and you though. Yeah. Like you and I are. You're the first shortest. I'm the second shortest.
Yeah,
we're gonna leave it at that.
Barely, just barely Tom short.
Yeah, you can test that theory. Go ahead.
Okay, and last but not least, join us, Randy. How you doing tonight, Randy?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good until now my feelings got hurt, and I'm old and I'm short and all these other things. But other than that,
and I'm short.
I got thick skin.
Did I mention soft? Soft in there?
Ooh.
Kyle, you better watch that. They're gonna hit you with a cut block. When we run these Oklahoma drills, they're gonna hit you with a cut block.
Right pissed in Kyle's Cheerios this morning.
I'm here for it.
No, I'm good. I'm excited to talk some big boys in the middle that can cause some problems. So
yes, definitely.
Yeah, I do want to assure everybody I took Scout out before the episode. Although if you can't see him because it's blurred out, but you can see his tail. He is currently behind me rearranging the sheets and comforter on my bed so that he is maximally comfortable. So if you hear huffing and spinning and stomping, that's what he's doing.
Hey, as he should, honestly. He deserves the princess treatment for how good of a Boy Scout is, except when we record, as always.
Nothing but the best for Scout.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and scout some defensive tackles today. How about you like the little
segue?
We've never used that one.
Look at you. With the
Tom, did you name him Scout because you like the draft so much? Is that why? That's got to be why.
It was not a non-factor.
Yeah.
It was part of it.
That's valid.
That is called illness, I think, but we'll carry on.
Obsession over the draft. Name everything in your life. Yeah. So we're going to talk about D tackles today. We've got a good amount of guys. So, the D line of the Chiefs obviously is one that we can all agree needs improvement from last year. Last year, I think, whether it was injuries, we had Omar Norman-Lott, who was the rookie second round pick who got injured in his torn ACL in like the 5th or 6th week of the season. So that kind of sucked. We had the whole Derek Nottie, Mike Pennell fiasco last year of switching around nose tackles. Chris Jones obviously is still Chris Jones. He's always good. But when you have no one around you, it is tough. It is tough to generate a lot of force when you're just the only one that the offensive line is focusing on because no one else can get home or really do anything. So that was definitely a big story of last season, the defensive line being very inadequate. So we're trying to fix things this year, right? We're obviously trying to improve the position. Now I think if you look at the roster right now, out of the D line positions, edge is a little bit more of a priority, I think you would say, which edge will be coming up in a future episode. But as far as defensive tackles, the big fellas, we've signed Kyrus Tonga in the offseason to a decent sized deal. So he's a guy that you can probably slot in as your starting nose tackle, at least at this point in time of the offseason. You still have Chris Jones. You have Omar Norman-Lott, who's coming off of that ACL injury, so who knows how long it'll take for him to kind of get back up to speed. And then outside of that, it's kind of bare in the cupboard on the defense.
You got Nada, not Nadi, Nada. It's a different.
Yeah. And probably not going to see Nadi no more. He signed somewhere else this offseason. Hopefully that's
if you don't knock on wood, if we don't end up
You're
trading
right.
some nonsensical future
Yeah.
6th-round pick, I swear to
I
God.
did this for McCole for like 3 years. I was like, he's finally gone, and then he just kept coming.
And
back.
every year, what did I say to you? You're speaking too soon.
Yeah.
And then
So-
in week 7, here come McCole walking out.
Yeah.
I told you every time.
So you really don't know,
do it.
but as the defensive tackle room looks now, definitely need to add. There's a couple of like practice squad and like future contract guys that we signed last season, but there's still room to be proven, especially long term, having a guy that you can kind of pair with Chris Jones to maybe finish out Chris Jones' career and kind of maybe even have the next era of that D line being anchored by a big fella up there. It's important. How important? That's for you to judge. If you look at the Chiefs' draft positions, obviously having pick 9, 29, 40, some of those big premium positions, you don't know how many viable options are going to be at each selection, especially at 9, which we'll start off with here. But Tom, I'm gonna let you jump in first. How would you evaluate the Chiefs' defensive tackle room currently, and what do you think we're kind of missing as far as a type of player in that room right now?
Yeah, so depth is the thing that we're missing. I think Kyrus Tonga is a really good addition for what the Chiefs usually like to have next to Chris Jones. And I think when we talked about that signing when it happened and just the fit there, I think that's you have at least 2 guys that you say, hey, we can if we had to play a football game tomorrow, I've got 2 defensive tackles who I can put in the starting lineup and feel good about. The Omar Norman-Lott kind of is I think the pivot point for this team, and depending on, there's 2 things that I think could drive the value for defensive tackle up in this draft for the Chiefs. The first is how they feel about Norman-Lott's recovery and where he was at. I think he was improving. Snap counts were going up. He was playing a little bit more. I mean, he was still playing. He was rotating. He had 1 start in 5 games. He was rotating a lot. He was playing somewhere between 20 to 30% of the snaps on defense. So he was getting there, right? We saw some flashes. If they are not comfortable with that, or if they feel like, so that's some of that internal scouting, that self-scouting they have to do. The other thing I would say is if the board falls a certain way, like if there's if Bain goes before 9 and then there's a run on pass rushers in the mid-teens, into the mid to late 20s, this team may be sitting on the outside looking in, and you may try to find a guy to supplement that pass rush through defensive tackle, knowing that you can kind of move Chris Jones around in specific rush situations, and that it doesn't hurt to have a guy who can be a long-term solution if you like him enough. If he's a top player on your board, if you take him there at 29 or 40, you can have 4 to 5 years of control. And also keep in mind, not that anyone's rushing Chris Jones out of town. Legendary player, Hall of Fame player. So I'm not saying that, but his contract does have an out.
Calling him old.
Yeah, and he may decide it's time to hang up the hammer and at some point. So it's that's part of it. So you think about getting a legitimate starter to kind of fill in those shoes and not be trying to fill that gap. You know,
Oh, nobody's filling that gap, sir. No,
yeah, I would say,
nobody's filling that gap.
yeah,
That
it's a big
gap's
gap
gonna
to
go
fill.
unfilled for a long time.
Yeah.
That's
So, but you don't want to. I mean, yeah, you might have to throw multiple guys to
what's wrong,
fill.
Randy? You seem to be turning colors. What is happening?
You guys are.
But yeah, I think that well, I mean, yeah, it's big shoes to fill, proverbially and literally.
This is not a
So I
kid
think
show.
that's a consideration when we get to that 20 and 40 range and just where the board falls. And I think that it's possible there could be some guys who have some pretty high upside in that position. And again, if the board falls a certain way and there's not a pass rusher on the outside, maybe you look to make your defensive line stronger that way.
Yeah, it's valid. That's valid. So let's get into it of the prospects for this year. So first and foremost, we can come out and say at pick 9, you're not drafting defensive tackle. I think we can kind of be pretty
Not unless
definitive on
like
that.
half the top prospects are like dead or arrested.
Yeah, and even so, it's probably pretty rich. I don't think there's necessarily a top defensive tackle in this class that you would necessarily say is deserving of a top 10 pick, or even maybe even like a top 12, 13 pick. I mean, if you were to trade back, you can maybe entertain some guys, but I do think, especially for what the Chiefs' needs are, and like Tom mentioned, it's really a depth thing. Primarily is what we're kind of needing. It's not like a number one position to be filled. So I don't think it's going to be an option at 9. I think we can kind of cross that one off pretty easily.
Yeah, there's not a Jalen Carter, Gerald McCoy and Ndamukong Suh type guy in this class. There's just not. So.
Yeah, there's not a defensive tackle on this board I'm really all that interested with in taking in the first round. I mean, 29, I guess, but like definitely not in the top 10.
No,
you're not even close. Like, there's no chance.
Yeah. So I think most of the conversation when you start it will be at pick 29, which I think there's a chance most of them are going to be available at pick 29. Depending on how some of them get valued us. You can maybe say that some of them might go in the mid 20s and whatnot. But I think it's pretty safe to assume that you'll have some good options at 29 if you're feeling that way. So, Randy, let me start with you. Who is your top defensive tackle in this class?
Well, I do have a slight difference between my top defensive tackle and my favorite defensive tackle. So, I mean, after watching all these dudes and following throughout the course of the year and watching the previous seasons and whatnot, I think the consensus number one defensive tackle in this class is Peter Woods. Now, with that being said, Peter Woods is not my favorite defensive tackle in this class, but we'll go with chalk here for the moment. I do think his 2024 season was better than this season's for some odd reason. I guess there's a lot of different reasons. This year just didn't click, and he didn't cement himself as like a top 10 pick like everybody thought he was going to do. Like coming into the season, everybody thought Peter Woods. He's like, yep, he's a top 10 dude, top 15 for sure. And that just never really, he never really dominated this year. He still played well, but he wasn't the force that everybody expected him to be. And he is a little bit undersized. He's at 6'2", 298, 295, 298. He's that's sub 300 pounds, but that does allow him to have some versatility when it comes to lining up all over the defensive line, which I think Clemson maybe tried to do just too much of this year, and I think that kind of hampered his ability to really kind of cement himself and get into like maybe a rhythm or a groove in a position where he could really feel comfortable instead of like, okay, I'm a one tech, I'm a 0, I'm going to bounce out to a 3, they're going to have me in a 7 in this fit, and I'm like, you put all those things into context, and you're like that can kind of wreak havoc with a kid's just ability to get into a groove and stuff like that. But But with that being said, my favorite defensive tackle in this class is Lee Hunter. Just an absolute wrecking ball of a nose tackle that has some juice and some attitude and some nasty, and a guy that I think could really do what we need our defensive tackle to do to help Chris Jones be Chris Jones. Chris Jones gets double teamed, triple teamed more than pretty much any other defensive lineman in the league. You have to have that other defensive tackle have a presence, and he needs to be double teamed as well. He needs to eat up some space. He needs to eat up some blockers, and I think a guy like Lee Hunter really would free up Chris Jones to have some more one-on-one opportunities. I mean, because you can't take 4 offensive linemen for 2 defensive linemen and be successful. Like, you can't double team both of them all the time. So you really need a guy that has some juice, has some strength, has some tenacity and nastiness in there to cause some chaos to free up everyone else. And I think that's my favorite part about Lee Hunter.
That's valid. I dislike Peter Woods. I will just say that. I will just come out and say that pretty solidly. Yeah, he is definitely probably the consensus top defensive tackle by most people, and definitely even early on, I think in the draft process, he was even a potential pick at 9 for some people. But when I first kind of dove into him, I really was not a fan of him. And I didn't watch any of his 2024, so that's probably, on me. But this last year, he didn't really have a lot of juice, it felt like. It felt like he was kind of a lot of even his highlights are just kind of run-stuffing plays or just kind of being a big body in the middle. Didn't necessarily impress me with, I don't know, just didn't really light up the screen for me as a guy that I would really, really like to see in red and gold. So I'm out on Peter Woods. Tom, I don't know how you feel about him or how you kind of rank the top D tackles on the board for you, but I don't like Peter Woods. I know that for sure.
No, we can hate on him together, and then the Chiefs will probably draft him just to spite us. Okay. The people like Peter Woods because he did have some really intriguing tape in 2024. And you know what? Woods is not the only defensive tackle in this class who's kind of like that. Clemson had a down year, the whole program, right? DJ Parker, their quarterback, their whole team underperformed, was surprisingly just...
Cade Klubnik stinks. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and look at the preseason stuff for Clemson, like, the whole team just imploded. I just think there's so much projection with Peter Woods, and I kind of disagree with Randy's take that they because 2024 they used him all over the place too. They had him outside and inside, and I'm not saying that there wasn't part of this that was coaching and usage, but I think at the end of the day, when you're watching a player on tape, and even if it's a good player on a bad team, you can still kind of see it. And in 2024, I saw the flashes of, I get why people are kind of excited. But then we got to this year, and it's like, I felt like even if you say backward, it just didn't make the progress, right? He didn't take that step forward to be a complete player, to be a guy who I want to trust with a top 10 pick or maybe even a first-round pick. He's young, 21 years old, good athletic profile. I think he's not as explosive as people seem. Personally, I think he has to have kind of a build-up to get his speed and get his feet underneath him. And it's not always that burst. Now, if he can kind of move and churn those feet and get a little bit of that, then he moves pretty well. But overall, I don't see him as twitchy as some people seem to believe, and maybe I'm missing it. But yeah, I don't like him at 9. I don't know. I think with the other options that will probably be there at 29 and even 40, I think I would probably want to invest in somebody else other than Peter Woods. Athletic profile, young player, weird system. I get it. But at that point, I think you're having to make more excuses to justify the player than you are like being excited about him and what he's done. Because again, good players make good plays even on bad teams. So that's my big takeaway. Yeah.
That's valid. Cal, I know you don't like Clemson in general, but
I don't, but I don't like Peter Woods for reasons differently than not liking Clemson. They talk about the weird system. They basically ran line changes of defensive linemen at points in time during the season, where they would basically run like a swap of 4 complete guys on and off the field, first down, second down, third down. It would vary depending on how many. There was a lot, and then as Randy was mentioning, sometimes some of their defensive linemen would go from like a 1 tech or a 3 tech to a 7 or a 9, and now they got 5 D linemen on the field, and now so there was a lot of different things. One, he was, I think, somewhat a benefit of them trying to get him matchups, and Tom mentioned his need for a little bit of a run up to get himself going. A lot of that had to do with where they were trying to align him. I'm not a fan of his motor. I'm not a huge fan of his innate ability. I think he's very athletic, but I just don't know. I think a lot of his stuff in 24 was built off of, there was a lot of talent around him on that defensive line in 24 also, and there was less of it in 25. And you saw the production dip off in 25 versus 24, not just from it became more he and TJ needed to do it without any extra additional big time help, and they just really couldn't get it done. So that is a little bit of a concern as well when you're asking a guy to come in and be somebody who can generate their own pressure, because that's what we have enough of in this team, is guys that can generate it off of somebody else doing it, and not enough that can just go do it themselves. So I don't like Peter Woods at all. I'm good. I'm out. I'm good now.
Can I bring up one more thing that none of us mentioned that I think is important for this conversation with Peter Woods? Both his first and last name are related or euphemisms for penis. So I think
that's a possible problem too.
You're right.
So that's all. Just a turn off.
Yeah, that's so valid. You couldn't have said it better myself, Tom. You always that hard hitting, investigative stuff like that.
We needed that insight, and
it's good insight. It's good analysis.
Listen, everybody knows I do my homework. It's Dane Brugler and the Beast, and then it's me and analysis like that. That's the ranking. The big gap between the two, 1 and 2, regardless.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about some guys we would rather take at 29, because there's a couple I think that are in that conversation. Lee Hunter is definitely one of them that Randy mentioned. Caleb Banks is another really, really fun prospect, a physical, just huge human, right? 6'6",
very large man.
He has 35.5-inch arms or something like that. Like, he is ridiculously big. So he's a really fun prospect we'll talk about right now. Also, another first-round potential guy, Caden McDonald, is another really good, not as big, just 6'2", 326, but how do we feel about those two specifically? Especially
just 6'2", 326.
Yeah, compared to, it's funny, if you were standing next to Banks, he probably looks like Kyler Murray in a little bit. But
he'd probably look like but still insane to say.
For me, Caleb Banks is
327 pounds.
Incredibly fun player. Not just the measurables, but the person. He fills up space so well. He's got he's got a lot of strength and power in his game. Like, he's got he moves good for a big fellow like that. Like, that's another thing that really stands out to me, is how well he moves. Randy, what do you feel about some of those top guys?
Yeah, like I said, I already mentioned Lee Hunter as my favorite defensive tackle, but I think in this range you're going to see the Lee Hunter, you're going to see Caden McDonald, you're going to see Caleb Banks, and you might even sprinkle in Christian Miller in this mix. This kind of rounds out the top 5 interior defensive linemen. I think each one of them has their own niche. Caden McDonald is just a run stuffer of a human. He's at 6'2", 326 pounds. But like the most intriguing most intriguing one really is Caleb Banks, because you imagine standing Caleb Banks next to Chris Jones, and those are your two interior defensive linemen staring at you from an opposing offensive line. Like, those are two very freakishly large human beings who have very freakish athletic profiles and ability. The thing with Banks is the inconsistencies and the injury. That's the anchor that's weighing him down from being a top 15 type pick. So yeah, he's going to be sitting there at 29. More than likely, again, we obviously can't guarantee that, but very likely sitting there at 29. And it would be a super intriguing pick. It really would be. I'm sure Spags would be just drooling and salivating over just the thought of having Jones and him lined up in the middle. But yeah, he's definitely the most intriguing and maybe the most exciting out of the next couple of guys. Could be a whole lot of fun. Really could be.
Yeah. Caleb Banks is easily the most exciting. I hate this, but it's the reference that you guys are going to understand. He's built like Chris Jones. I mean, and you see those flat. I mean, that like big, fast, and when he's motivated and locked in and really focused, he just you can't stop him. It is that level of force. 6'6", 35-inch arms, almost 11-inch hands at 327. And he ran almost a 5 flat for the 40-yard dash, which is good. It's even better when you consider that the reports about his foot injury is that he broke his foot the night before. So he ran that at 327 pounds on a broken foot. Now, the medicals have to check out. If I remember correctly, and I have been wrong once or twice before in my life, but I believe it was the same foot that he had dealt with the injury in 2025. That same injury. Get it checked out. If it's something that I think if it lingered, and maybe because here's the thing. This season he got hurt early. He shut himself down for a while. And I think they're probably around mid-season or so, there was this idea that he probably wasn't going to come back. But he is a fifth-year senior, so he's an older prospect at 23. And then there were some other discussions about, is he going to fall, whatever. Came back, he played, I think, the final 3 games. And then he did the Senior Bowl, and he was dominant there. And I think the other thing that was heard from the Senior Bowl was just the way he responded to coaching. There's definitely things to clean up with his game in terms of run fits, all that stuff. But there's a story about a rep where the guard beat him on the rep, and he said, "No, I want to run it again. I want to run it again." And then, he was really ticked off. I think it was Todd McShay that said Caleb Banks also had the filthiest mouth at the Senior Bowl practices, and that he was saying some things that he's like he could have been brought up on war crimes if our country cared about those types of things, just because of what he was saying, and I love that. I love that nasty attitude, and like I said, he's got the physical tools to back it up. So for me, I see Caleb Banks. If you're taking him at 29, you are taking a swing for the fences. There's a lot of risk there, but there's a lot of reward. I think, like Randy said, you put him and Chris Jones next to each other, and good frickin' luck.
They essentially look like the same human being,
Yeah.
Like what is Chris Jones is what, 6'8"?
I think he's 6'5" and
6'6".
5, 6'6".
They're about the same height. They're pretty much the same exact human being physically.
Guys, it literally. And I heard things like when he tries, when he's motivated, when he puts effort in. Weird.
So it's the same guy.
So it's the same guy. All right. So if the older version of the same guy gets the younger version of the same guy, do you think he's not going to be like, hey, little version of me, don't do the shit I did when you were that age? Okay? Cool.
You'll get paid way more.
Good talk. They'll pay you a lot more than they paid me, and you won't have to watch week 1 from the press box between two Wish.com Italian agents.
Yeah. Keep him away from Chris Jones's representation.
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't you call I don't know, literally anyone else. So here's the thing: there's two guys for me at 29, and there's only two guys, and it's Hunter and Banks. Cade McDonald is fine. I don't. He does not bring a level that I think affects this D line room. Which, if you're going to spend pick 29 on a interior defensive lineman, I need massive impact. I think the best option for that is Caleb Banks. I think the second best option for that is Lee Hunter. I would be, if they're both on the board, the option is obviously Caleb Banks for me, but I could understand both picks by the front office in either case. So I don't really have too much to add on the players. The players are excellent. Caleb Banks is a freak. I don't think when Randy and Tom say he's like Chris Jones, no, like literally it's like they're a carbon copy of the same individual, except he's younger. It's very scary.
Yeah.
And them next to each other, and as Chris as a mentor, it's very scary. Also, you add that to O'Neill and Gelati and Karloftis, and all of a sudden, that changes the floor conversation of the defensive line room without even addressing more of the edge position, because it elevates your interior to a point where you're not worried. And maybe you can you can let Omar Norman Lott be 270 pounds instead of 295, and he can be outside more or used differently, as opposed to trying to make him Derek Nottie Jr. or whatever the hell the plan was last year.
Yeah.
Can I make the case? I know we're talking 29, and I think we've said this even, that 29 and 40 pick, it's kind of that turn, and you can kind of lump some of these players together.
Yeah.
I want to.
If they get either one of those guys at 40, you will see me do cartwheels through the living room.
Yeah, I think, pretty obvious. We're pretty excited at 40. I am less high on Lee Hunter. I will just say that I wouldn't take him at 29 or 40, but we won't get into that too much because Randy will come through the screen and fight me. But let me make the case for the two other guys that I would look at. Cade McDonald was already mentioned, and I think we're so kind of burnt out on the big nose tackle experiments that the Chiefs have had in the last decade. And
golly gee, Tom, why might that be?
Yeah, and obviously Kairos Tonga is that guy for now. I will just throw it out there, like Chris Jones is not the typical defensive tackle in a Steve Spagnuolo scheme, and Cade McDonald is Spags has typically always had a bigger nose tackle. He hasn't had that way with Kansas City. Long story short, Cade McDonald to me is a guy who I have a lot of confidence is going to earn a second contract in this league. Yes, he is primarily a run stopper, but you have to understand that he is elite at that, and he can push the pocket. He can generate some pressure. I think there's stuff to unlock, but you're getting such a high floor run defense player, and I will point to the season that Damon Harrison had, former New York Giants tackle, under Steve Spagnuolo, 2015, 2016, where he had 86 tackles at defensive tackle. And he threw in, 2.5 sacks in 2016. He had 72 tackles in 2015. I mean, just it was in the middle and was unstoppable. That frees up. You talked about the double team aspect that frees it up. Similar in how I view it, but I think more of a all-around player. Christian Miller out of Georgia. I think he has more juice than what people think. And I kind of think Christian Miller is the prospect that people think Peter Woods is. That's how I would say it. Is maybe not quite as athletic, but the floor is really high there. I think he could do everything everything you could ask him to do. I would be okay with him at 29 or 40. That's where I'm at with those guys. But like I said, Caleb Banks is the big is the big swing. I would probably stack it Banks, Miller, McDonald at 29-40. And yeah,
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 that's pretty valid.
we don't put a ton of stock in the whole PFF rankings and grades and whatnot, but McDonald and Miller were 1 and 2 on their PFF run defense grades this year. So
Yeah, very, very.
Well,
I feel like
put no stock in that company now. It's gone.
right, yeah,
I feel like McDonald and Miller are both like, yeah, just what people think Peter Woods should be or could be, but
Right.
they're just like much better versions of it. Like I would definitely rank both those guys over Peter Woods as far as like actual productivity. And they're very, like I said, it's mostly run stopping and run stuffing that you're kind of banking on with those guys. Which is important for sure, and the way that Steve Spagnuolo uses defensive tackles is a little unique, like Tom said. So, the necessarily the roles that you might see them in college might not necessarily be the role that we see him in the pros. We can see that last year with Omar Noman Lott of how they kind of changed him around a little bit. But yeah, Banks I think is definitely the really intriguing item. Kristen Miller is okay. Obviously, Georgia Bulldogs are always really good. Like if you're drafting a Georgia Bulldog from the defensive side, that's usually going to work out pretty good for you. So if that were the case, I wouldn't be upset about it. But I do think all the options, maybe outside of Banks, are a lot more intriguing at 40 than they would be at 29, just because who else might potentially be there at other positions at 29 as compared to 40. But I digress. We'll keep it moving here. With the kind of the next tier of guys, you might say that 40 to like 74, guys that you could sneak into that, like if you really wanted them at 40, I suppose, but that next tier, Kyle, what do you kind of rate that next tier of guys?
So in the 40 range, like if you're talking to me about Hunter or McDonald or Miller or Hunter at 40, yes, obviously I'm great with that. I just don't think Banks gets there. I am less high on Dominique Orange out of Iowa State than I think most people probably are. I'm not as big of a fan. I'm probably more 74 would be fine with me than more than 40 or anything like that. And then Caleb Proctor's probably the next guy other than Halton from Oklahoma, but I haven't got to watch as much of Halton or of Daryl Jackson as I wanted to, so I don't have as much to say on those two guys. So,
well, let me tell you, Grayson Halton, I'll come out and say he's maybe my favorite defensive tackle in this draft, and he's not a first round pick. I would not say he's a first round pick for sure. I would take him at 40 if he was still there, which I think there's a chance he's not even there. I like Grayson Halton a lot. He's a lot different a flavor of everyone else that we've talked about so far because his main thing is pass rush over run defense, which is I just like pass rushers, right? I'm tired of based off of last year. I need to see some kind of pass rush juice out of someone besides Chris Jones in the interior. I think Grace Halton's a really fun player to watch. He's got a lot of explosiveness. He's got a lot of power in his game. Good burst. He's a little bit inconsistent with the ups and downs of his game, and he's not a polished prospect by any mean, but he's not going to be there much longer past 40, I think. And if you want a guy that can really be a long-term, really good project for you at defensive tackle, I like Grayson Halton a lot, but that's just me. And once again, it's kind of your pick your flavor. Dominique Orange is like complete out where he's like a big fella. Really he's going to move. Take up a lot of space, move guys. Grayson Halton is not that kind of guy, and maybe that's why I like him. Like I said, I just want some pass rush juice added to the team, and yeah, I like Grayson Halton.
Yeah, and that's
Paul looked like you wanted to fight me when I said something about Dominique Orange not being one of my favorites. So I'm not being as high on him, so I'm sure I have.
Halton he's an intriguing prospect. I'll give him that, but what he is he's incomplete by a large margin, and right now he is a third down situational interior pass rush threat because his favorite move is a spin move, and that's like his go-to, and it gets him out of position and in trouble more than anything. If he wins on it, yeah, it looks cool. Most of the time, that's not the case. because he has to try to do unorthodox things to make up for him being 6'2", 290 pounds with 31-inch arms. Like he's undersized, and he struggles against big maulers. Like if there's a big run, like road grading type guard, like a Kalen Rutledge, like this kid stands no chance against a guy like that. So that's my hang up with him. I mean, like he flashes. He definitely does flash, but there are so many other opportunities, or I shouldn't say opportunities, but instances where he just gets washed and engulfed and just completely taken out of his gap, to where he's a late day 2, maybe early day 3 guy for me.
I just don't think he's gonna make it there.
I mean, if somebody wants to take a shot at him, maybe. But if we're looking for guys in that next tier that I think are that can stand up to the fight at 74 or 109, that's where I think you're going to see Big Citrus and Daryl Jackson come into play. Daryl Jackson became one of my favorites throughout the course of the year. He is just an imposing freak of a human being. Like he's 6'5" and he's 340 pounds, and it's not a sloppy 340 pounds. Like the man is put together. But if you're looking for pass rush stats, you're not going to see that really with Daryl Jackson. He is a space eater. He is a get your hands on the center and the guard and let other people do their work. He's a huge true nose tackle type of player that could stand in as a Hulk stand in for a Marvel movie. Like he's just a huge freak. But he's in that 74 range. Like that's where 74 to 109. That's where I see him ending up at. But one of my favorite guys throughout the course of the year that kind of crept up on me late, but I'm a big fan.
Garrett, I texted Brett Veach. I said, "Hey, Brett, it's Thomas." And he said, "How did you get this number?" And I said, "Don't worry about that. I wanted to let you know that Garrett wants you to draft Grayson Halton." And Brett sent me a text back. He said, "Tell Garrett we have Grayson Halton at home," and it was just a picture of Omar Norman Mott. Do with that what you will. No, I do like Grayson Halton. Yeah. I do think there's a little bit of redundancy with. In fact, they're very similarly built players, and I think their highs and lows are very similar. So I get it. I wouldn't be mad. I don't think I'd take him at 40. I think I would take him. What was the next one? 74. I think the third round would be the sweet spot for him. I think if he falls into the fourth round, like sprint that card in.
He ain't gonna make it there, unfortunately. I don't think he's making it 74.
Kyle, I was side-eyeing you because you started to say things about Big Citrus, Mr. Dominic Orange, but I agree. I wouldn't take him at 40, but I would take him at 74. So third round, fourth round,
just doesn't. Wow. Randy mentioned, you're not going to get the wow factor. He's a space eater, and I get all that. But they don't... Nope. Even when Mike Pennell was there, they didn't use him often enough to justify a pick at 40. You could talk to me about it at 74. I'd be more comfortable with a big guy like that at 109. Just based on how they usually operate when they decide to use guys like that. That's why they're more... That's why when I say I'm less high, it's more because of a fit for what Kansas City does and how they approach it, to where I'm not really willing to use that much of a value of a pick on a guy that they're only going to let see the field for 25% of the snaps. Because if you look at Pennell's and even Noddy's snap percentages, they're right around that 25% mark most of the time.
Well, and the nice thing is I think there's a good second tier of those nose tackle positions. So, like, you take Dominic Orange, Daryl Jackson Jr., Dante Corleone, Regis from Texas A&M, who's kind of a guy I think who flies under the radar. But I would take those four and kind of put them in that bucket of third or fourth round guys who, like, if you're sitting there and you just don't like the board, you grab one of those guys and I think you get a plug and play nose tackle for 4 years. I mean, that's, I know it's not the most exciting thing, but if you're just again, depending on how the board falls, and we need that. If the team feels like that's a need, and I think that there's probably a little bit of that. And with those guys, you don't have to rush them into play. Again, with Tonga here, I think of those guys, Daryl Jackson probably has the most potential to develop more as a pass rusher, and develop some of that high rush or that high upside, um, at that position. But I wouldn't hold my breath on that. I think but all four of those guys are very like solid floor players at that position, and um, they're fun. I mean, not flashy, but that's why Randy and I probably like them. Is they're, like
Yeah.
Randy said, they show up, they do the job that other people don't want to do, and they let other people shine.
Yeah, and they do it really well.
Yeah, that is good. That is good. It's interesting how many these top defensive tackles are all just basically nose tackles. Like it's very interesting. Besides Grayson Halton, which is
Yeah,
once again,
there's a lot of really good
No.
0-1 tech nose tackles, like interior defensive line.
Yeah, if you need it, this is the draft to get one if you need one. And obviously, I think the Chiefs could definitely use one for long-term future. Like I said, but, we have Tonga for at least a year or two, but I think long-term you could definitely benefit by getting another guy. But I think you guys are in the right mindset of maybe wait until day 3, right? Like maybe or like round 3, round 4, round 5. I feel like you can still get some pretty decent. Like Daryl Jackson, I think is the guy. If he's still there at round 4, I would definitely love him. Dante Corleone, there's a couple big fellas that rounds 4 and 5 I feel like would be more suited with what the team's needs and kind of would fit into that range. I just want to go back to Grayson Halton real quick because I just love him so much. Tom mentioned that he's kind of just the same as Omar Norman Lott, very similar as far as like build and whatnot. I think Grayson Halton is what we all hoped Omar Norman Lott would be, and the small flashes that we saw from Omar Norman Lott coming out of college is like all of everything that Grayson Halton is. I think he's just like he's just all the good parts of ONL. Like and I didn't like ONL coming out as a pro. I know Randy didn't like him either. Grayson Halton's way better than Omar Norman Lott in my opinion as far as a prospect. So
Well, I'll agree with that because I think Grayson Halton was much more consistent. He wasn't part of some ragtag, rotational weird platoon-ish thing that Tennessee was doing.
Yeah, he was kind of a part-time player a little bit. I mean, he didn't have as many. He wasn't like a necessarily 3-down player at Oklahoma, but way more than what you saw from ONL out of Tennessee.
And the thing I'll give Halton for sure is like the kid's got a motor, and that's
big time.
That as a defensive player in general, you have to have that nonstop fight in you to keep going because the play's never over until the whistle, obviously. So you have to constantly fight through another large human being for as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's always been my biggest knock against Chris Jones. Is like he takes too many plays off. You see him on the sideline way too often. But granted, at a human being at his size, yeah, I understand. You need some rest. There is that to be said. But
and he's done it all
the
by
guys
himself. Ever.
Yeah. But the guys that have that nonstop motor, that I do love that aspect of his game. Right now he's situational. And if we're going to invest something in a top 3 or 4 picks, I think you need to be more of a every play, every down type guy.
I'm not even mad about like the Grayson Halton like hype. I'm mad about the Omar Norman Lott slander.
Is this news though?
Norman Lott's more productive, and this is like they are so similar. Halton wears number 56. Norman Lott wore 55. I mean, come on, guys! Like the only big difference is Norman Lott has like almost 3-inch longer arms and almost an inch larger hands.
You know who also wore 56, Tom? Lawrence Taylor.
Derek Brooks wore 55.
What
does that do with the conversation?
Counter argument, Tom. I like that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm not like Guys, Omar Lot's not dead. They didn't cut him. They didn't
No, but his ACL might be for at least this year. You know, I mean, it's going to take him a little while to get back into that shape. You might as well just draft
He
Grayson
tore
Halton
it
now.
pretty early last year. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying
Yeah.
let's not write Omar
I'm not writing him
off.
off, but hey, he'd be a good rotational duo. Those two.
I'm sorry. I wrote him off when we drafted him.
Randy's not even
Well,
hiding it.
No.
That's pretty funny. The last thing I want to say about Grayson Halton, that Randy mentioned, you know, a bigger road grading guard can maybe get your hands on him and mess him up and whatnot. I'm going to compare him in that aspect to Xavier Worthy, actually. Which, Randy, I know a big criticism of Xavier Worthy coming out was that, you know, if you press him, you neutralize him, you know. And my response is he's so quick and so fast, you ain't gonna get your hands on him, you know. I think that applies for Xavier Worthy and it applies for Grayson Halton. Good luck. I mean, not to say he's never not gonna get his hands on, but you know what I'm saying. I think he's got the explosiveness that he can, you know. Even one of the best guards might have trouble getting their hands on him immediately. So I was leaving it at that.
His best bet would be to find a system or to have a system draft him that stunts and moves their defensive linemen a lot. That would maximize his play ability and maybe let him see the field or maybe be more productive. But it's going to be a scheme fit for sure for him.
Yeah, man. Okay, so what's the next tier then? So I think we've covered most of the prospects that we would guess take on day 2 and day 3, or day 2, I should just say. Unless there's anyone else that you'd sneak into that third round window. But
I know we briefly touched on him, or Kyle briefly touched on him, but Dante Corleone, the Godfather, I think he's in that fringe of that tier to top of the next tier type guy. And I think if it wasn't for the medical, the blood clots thing, and for the fact that he seemed to peak in 2022 and hasn't really played the same or 2023 hasn't played the last couple of seasons, has probably made him slide down the draft board a little bit. But another one of those just big mountain of a human beings to plug up the middle. So he's kind of that fringe, the end of that second tier, beginning of the third one.
Right. Yeah, that's valid. Dante Corleone, the health is a big question mark, I think. But obviously the Chiefs have had similar things with health question marks, especially blood clots like Trey Smith had. So that's a big thing. If the medical team checks him out and the Chiefs have a really good medical team, that might be a good home run steal that you can get maybe even later than anticipated, just because you can take some of those teams, take them off the board completely. You might be able to sneak them in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, something like that. Who else? What other names?
Corleone and Caleb Proctor are the two guys that I would look at in that for that next that 109, and then even a couple of whatever the pick. I think whatever the pick is after that. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head.
The first 5th round pick, wherever we have, 130 something.
Those two guys for me. Corleone. This is where I'm fine with. Like I said earlier, I'm fine with getting more into that space eater, big guy, just a monster. Take up and eat into the double teams. Let Nick Bolton run around free behind him without getting much traffic to him. Stuff like that. He's if the medicals work, he's another guy you get later than you should, because he'd be a lot higher up on people's boards if he didn't have blood clots in his lungs in 24. So I like him a lot. Caleb Proctor out of southeastern Louisiana. He's another guy that I just enjoy watching him play. I enjoyed a lot of the way his footwork. I like the way he moves his hands. I would be fine with him in the later rounds if you have to go interior line in that 4th or 5th round range. He is the guy for me that I would like to keep an eye on in that range. Guy I was not impressed with was Chris McClellan out of Missouri, and we'll leave it at that because I don't want Mizzou fans yelling at me. Who's next?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat? I was watching Omar Lott sack Jalen.
Nope. I'm not.
No?
I am not repeating shit. No, I'm not saying nothing.
No,
I heard you. I think Caleb Proctor is one that's
no, you didn't.
Intriguing to me. It's almost like there's like a rotation because I think you have that middle, like that second tier of defensive tackles, who are like the nose tackles, and then you get into day 3, and it's a lot of guys who I think are more of those undersized, like pass rushing, um, Garrett type of prospects, and they're fun players. They've got some juice. One that's interesting, just because he had a crazy combine, was Zane Durant out of Penn State. He is raw as cookie dough, but ran a 4.75 at 290. Short, stockier guy, explosive twitch. Like, you see that speed. But yeah, he just has to put together. But if you do, on day 3, you grab him and you let him. He's probably 2 years away from being even a guy that I would like feel good about putting into my rotation. But there's not a lot of guys who move that way. Caleb Proctor.
Sorry, I like Zane Durant. I look at him as kind of like a Tasmanian devil. Like, he's explosive, he's raw, he's freakish, he tries to cause problems and kind of be like this weird wrecking ballish, just trying to play on the opposite side of the offensive line. But like, with all of his explosiveness and his ability to run, and he's fast, like, he's got a below 10% career pass rush win rate, and he misses 20% he's got a 20% missed tackle rate, which I don't like. Now, can that stuff be coached up and cleaned up? Absolutely. Does he have some traits that are intriguing? For sure. He's not your nose tackle. He's not your one tech. This is a true 3-tech type kid. But I think as of right now, like, he's in that situational. He's a third down player. He's a project. But fun guy to watch at times, for sure. But he's definitely kind of lumped in with the next 3 to 5 guys who are so very, very similar. It's like, close your eyes and throw a dart at the board, and whatever name you hit, you're going to get the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you.
Even Caleb Proctor's profile is very similar to Zane Durant.
Yeah. I'll tell you my favorite day 3 guy, and this might come as a shock to you. He's undersized, but he's got the juice. Landon Robinson out of Navy. This is.
You can't take Landon Robinson from us.
I'm taking him. I'm claiming him
as
that's my.
Randy guy's guy.
Hey, you guys like big guys, all right? You can't claim a guy who's 5'11", 293, and say all this other stuff you've been saying, and then like this.
The hell we can.
Tom and I have been on this dude's train for a while, and
He's
I think
insane.
it was an absolute travesty that he was not invited to the combine. Got no love whatsoever. But
so let me list off a couple of his stats real quick, and these aren't on the field stats. These are weight room stats. 665-pound squat, 465-pound bench press, and 350-pound power clean are some of his weight room records. If that goes to show you anything,
those are pretty good numbers.
Those are really insane numbers. If
you
you're
imagine him being on a boat,
he would sink. I feel like I don't know how he's on a boat. He would just.
He went to Navy, guys.
Yeah.
He's.
I bet if we sent him over to the straight, he could get it opened up.
Yeah, with his bare hands, he just pry it open.
But
anyway,
this year's the disrespect for this guy this year was just strange, though, because he's the American Conference Defensive Player of the Year, a first-team All-American, not invited to the combine.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
Yeah, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand it. We play him every year. Notre Dame plays him every year, and I've dealt with this dude. I've watched this dude yearly. He is annoying. He causes immense problems. And remember, Notre Dame's offensive line is not a bunch of bums. He's a problem. He causes you issues on the interior that are not easy to deal with because, as Garrett mentioned, he doesn't look like he should be as strong as he is, but he's an absolute bull. Like, he's not even 300 pounds. He's not 6 foot tall, and yet, good luck moving him.
Yeah.
Fun fact: he played running back and linebacker in high school.
Fun
Can you
fact.
imagine trying to tackle that dude?
Yeah,
No
I can
thanks.
imagine.
But you know,
Fun
it's
fact.
with all that being said, you know, him being a combine snub, like there was 20 teams at his pro day.
That goes to show
As
you.
they should have been.
Yep.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
man,
he's
the man is
definitely-
built like a fire hydrant.
Yeah, and he's the definition of low
I mean,
man weight. Like if you're talking about that's sometimes the benefit of being a little undersized like that, like 5'11". You know, you can kind of get that inside leverage, and really, I mean, the pad level is always a big thing that people talk about with like bigger guys. If you can kind of play down to the pad level, he's got the perfect pad level, and I mean, he can get inside guys, he can move guys, he's got finesse on the outside. Like I mean, he's not like a bona fide starter right away, but like he's the guy. Put him with Joe Cullen and Steve Spagnuolo. I think he would mold into
He
a
can give
into
you
a
some
very
depth.
solid player. So
He can
I
give you
really
depth right away.
yeah, he would immediately be a guy to contribute in both the run game and the pass game for you. So that's once again an undersized guy, not a nose tackle like some of the things we've been talking about, but he's a
I disagree with that because I think that he has the ability to anchor and hold up against the run. I mean,
oh
I'm
yeah,
going
I
to
mean,
say that everyone's going to groan and roll their eyes, but he is a player who.
I just said you're not moving him.
And that's I'm not saying that it's the same player, but I'm saying in terms of the style of like toughness being in there. I know we all are tired of Derek, but when Derek Nottie was a younger player and that type of thing, like that's what he offered, right? Again, built like a fire hydrant. You plug him in there. I love the way he takes on double teams. I love his motor. I think that he can do a little bit of both, but I think he'll carve his teeth as a run defender. You know, so I wouldn't.
he reminds me a lot of Colin Saunders actually, as far as former Chiefs defensive tackle that we can compare him to, and also something that an underrated aspect of Colin. They played him at linebacker one game. I'm sure we all remember that, and he was out there running around crazy. Like if you needed to play him at linebacker, Landon Robinson, you could do it. Like he's got the pursuit, he's got
Who else remembers that?
the speed and the
The
quickness.
Chargers.
Yeah, like he reminds me a lot of Colin Saunders specifically from that game he was playing linebacker, where it's like he can kind of like he can cover the field pretty well. The pursuit angles that he has are really good. Like I don't know, he's a guy I think you could definitely use in a lot of different ways and have a lot of fun with. So that's my
Is
main
that the
guy.
game?
Go
Is
ahead.
that Colin Saunders game you're referring to that I said we should let him cover people more than we should let Nick Bolton cover people? Is that game against the Chargers?
I mean, he was showcasing pretty dang good ability in that aspect. Yeah, he was solid. So, but yeah, Landon Robinson, if he's the option at your fourth round pick, I'd be fine with it. In fifth round would be even better probably. But I like him. I like him a lot. Well, who else is on the board that we haven't talked about yet?
There's another guy who had a really great showing at the combine too. Very very similar to Mr. Zane Durant, but that's David Gusta. He ran a 4.88. He's 6'3", 317 pounds. Ran a 4.88. Had 37 reps on the bench, which led all defensive linemen at the combine. But he's another one of those guys who's like super athletic, great big strong dude, but is just incredibly inconsistent. Like his pad levels all over the place. He can't figure out where to put his hands half the time. But again, these are all coachable things. Like he's one of those lump of clay kids that is like, ooh, look at this big strong kid who's super fast and super strong. His technique sucks. Let's coach him up and see what we can turn him into. So he's kind of one of those, like I mentioned just before we got into this tier of player, there's a lot of these guys that are so very, very similar. Gusta, Durant, very, very similar kids. Another guy like even Skylar Gill-Howard, the other defensive lineman from Texas Tech, very similar. I think he was maybe a little bit more, with his production, more of a product of having Lee Hunter next to him. Which I think really helped his stock or helped his production throughout the course of the year. There's one guy that I'm a little higher on than most people, and sometimes I wonder why I'm a little higher on him than I am, because I always, harp on inconsistencies and not playing hard all the time. But when this guy is on, he's really, really hard to block, and that's Xavier Harris from Ole Miss. Another 6'4", 6'5" guy, 330-ish pounds. Would look really good standing next to Chris Jones. But the inconsistencies is really what gets him, and not playing hard all the time, which is another one of those, why I compare him to Chris Jones, or think he's in that mold of like the Caleb Banks, Xavier Harris, Chris Moulds type-ish person.
Xavier Harris is 6'7.5". That's crazy. He's actually a big fella.
Okay.
He's built like Godzilla.
Yeah, he's a big fella. 6'7.5", 330. Yeah, that's good. I mean, hey,
He's not a little guy.
not a
He
little.
looks great coming off the bus.
Yeah.
Who else? Anyone else? Tom, you have any other later round guys
I've got-
that you're interested?
We gotta talk about this guy. We just have to. Law Bernard hasn't played a snap
Dang it.
of football
Oh,
in his life.
Oh, the
This
international
monstrous kid from
Yes.
Nigeria? Yes.
Nigerian international guy.
I saw it. I'm kind of like, all right, whatever. It's football is a hard game to pick up. Okay.
Uh-huh.
It's a hard
Hey,
game.
Tom,
to
you want to
learn.
read his numbers?
I am going to. So I mentioned, we said, oh, hey, Zane Durant was a freak athlete at 293, and he ran a 4.75. 4.75. Ular at 306 pounds, 6'4", 306, ran a 4.63. Let me verify something before I say this out loud. Well, do you know what Keon Coleman, the wide receiver that the Bills
I
took,
was going to say, which
And-
wide receiver did he run a faster one for?
a 4.61?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ridiculous at 306 pounds. But it's not just that.
If you
39.
saw the pictures of this guy, like, it's a 306 pounds at like 10% body fat. Like,
Yeah, it looks like it's carved out of stone.
Yeah.
right. This
So
guy is
if-
freakishly put together.
If this guy had been at the NFL Combine, he would have broke the broad jump record for defensive tackles by 5 inches. So he broad jumped a 10-10. The current record is a 10-5 by Adeboire from Northwestern a couple years ago. I used to like that kid. The record for the vertical at defensive tackle for the NFL Combine, also held by Adeboire, 37.5 inches. So he's got an inch and a half on the vertical there. Just absolutely ridiculous athlete. 21 years old. And he benched 31 reps at it's 225. Ridiculous. Now, his 3-cone was trash. Some of his movement stuff when you're watching him, he's a little rigid, but yeah.
Teach that man
A
how to
little
play
bit rigid
football.
from the people who watched him. That's what I've heard. But man, so the Chiefs are in a unique position because they have like 4 5th-round picks, and this is a
Yeah.
guy who's going to be kind of a gamble. And I don't think there's another team that's going to like. I think most teams are probably looking at like, maybe we'll spend a 6th or a 7th on it, right?
Maybe.
Brett Veach, go ahead and call up Clark, tell him to get out the bronze underwear, and so you can go on draft day with your giant nards just hanging out, and go draft this kid in the 5th round. Just do it. It's a 5th round pick. It can't
Yeah,
be
I
any
don't
worse
know.
than Derek. No.
I don't know if he's getting
go get
drafted. I just don't know if he's getting drafted.
Word
Guy
on the street is he's getting drafted.
never
I
played
would not.
football
I would not be
before.
surprised. Garrett, I understand all of those things, but you're talking about a 5th or a 6th or a 7th round lottery ticket on a guy who is terrifying build and athleticism and speed, and the things that he doesn't have is because he's never been taught how to do any of them. And once you get to teach him even some of the basics, his physical profile is going to cause some of these guys so many problems that he can't. It's worth the spin, especially because he will also count as your international player roster exemption spot. even if you draft him. So he's your
Well-
90. He's your extra guy there. He's your
Well,
extra guy on the
he's your
53
IPP
too, if you
player,
so
then he's
choose.
then you're not. If he's your international player program, he's not making the roster, which means that you're not like that. Rookie
Necessarily.
contract is just like
And
essentially
maybe
making
not
the
the first
practice
year.
squad.
Well, we already have Chew Godric for that, so we'd have to cut.
Yeah,
him.
you're not using a draft pick on a guy that's going to be the IPP, because then he's essentially a practice squad
Possible.
guy, and then if he's on the
I
practice
think
squad,
if you want him, you have to use a draft pick on him. Important thing I forgot to mention. Sorry to cut you off. 11-inch hands, 35 and 7 3/4 inch arms, almost 36-inch arms. That's wild.
He can palm your head like a basketball.
yeah,
I'm not here to say like, oh, this is whatever. I'm just saying with that and with this draft class, I mean, bro, I would do it. I would do it. And Yeldon, I mean, he has no film. I can't tell you this or that. You know.
no film. Yeah.
Like,
It does look like he has a visit scheduled with the Chiefs. So
yeah. And the Chiefs have been a really good international pathway, team. They've
Tried the rugby kid last year.
yeah,
Man.
and they had obviously Chew Godric. I'm looking up geography right now. Listen, the Chiefs have the original Nigerian nightmare, Christian Okoye.
Mhm.
Christian Okoye's hometown is only a short 8.5-hour drive to Uar's hometown. Maybe while Uar's here to visit, we just invite Christian to come say hi. I'm like, look, you could be the next Nigerian nightmare.
yeah,
And
that's kind of true.
yeah,
I don't
still
think-
out there. I mean, just
I don't think he's
recruit.
getting drafted still. I really don't. But if he,
I tell you
once again, if we were to draft him, I'd be ecstatic about it. I think he's going to be a high priority free agent that some team, an undrafted free agent that's going to get a pretty penny from someone. So
Garrett, I'll make you the same bet I made. I tried to make Kyle last week. I will bet you that he gets drafted. You're betting that he wasn't. Loser shaves their head.
this is once again, this is not a fair deal unless you're talking about whole head as including the chin area.
No, just the top.
No,
You're allowed to keep your facial hair.
I'm good on
He
it,
gets
but
drafted.
I do not think that he will get drafted. So having zero, I mean, hey, more power to him. I like him. I like him as a prospect. But if you've never stepped foot in organized football before, I just don't know if you're getting drafted. So yeah, I think that's everyone. I think unless there's anyone else later round that we're thinking of. There's a lot of defensive tackles in every year's draft. I think with the amount of priorities that the Chiefs are going to invest into it, I think we covered most of the guys. I think we covered most of the guys.
There's not a ton of other guys kind of lying out there. There's DeMonte Capehart, the other defensive tackle from Clemson.
Yeah, most of what I feel like.
And let me tell you a secret. Not a fan.
Yeah.
Most of the other guys are just kind of the same flavor of like nose tackle,
Yeah, it's-
run stuffers, maybe a down or two, kind of developmental guys.
You get into some bare bones, bottom of the barrel, pretty much.
Yeah,
after,
a lot of
after,
similarities
like,
in some of those guys. Not a lot of other like unique Landon Robinson types as you get further down that draft. So, yeah, I think we did it.
It's
Right?
just not.
I think we did
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I think so.
I think we did it.
I don't
So
think there's much
that's
else to go
We're
with.
good.
we're gonna wrap that up here. Appreciate you all for listening and rocking with us. We've got a couple more positions left. We've got edge rushers and we've got the secondary as the
We're
last
getting
two.
there, boys and girls. We're
So-
getting there.
NFL
getting
draft
closer.
almost here. We're almost at that point where we can.
We
gonna have
are
some-
also
we're gonna have some hot
almost
takes.
to what, Garrett?
We have some
We're
hot
almost in
takes
mock
next
draft
week.
warfare season, Kyle. We're also almost
Yes.
at mock draft warfare season. So
Yes, tell the people, Mr. Garrett. Tell the people.
that's gonna be coming up the week
About the
of the
warfare
draft.
that is
Week of
mocking.
the draft. We got mock draft warfare coming up. If you guys aren't familiar, that's the yearly exercise we do with the draft, where we kind of go around robin style of drafting guys with certain restrictions. We do a one big mock draft where you can't draft the same position at a certain pick, and we're all drafting at the same time for the same pick. So gets a little chaotic, but it's a really fun exercise that really makes you think about kind of options that real life you never know how many options are really going to be there as opposed to some of these mock drafts, and you kind of have to plan for worst case scenarios sometimes where a lot of your maybe positions of priority are mostly gone. So you have to kind of divert to plan B and C and D. So
Drafting a long snapper in round 4 because everyone else has been taken.
so it's a fun exercise, and the past couple of years we've gotten
We've hit on a couple.
a couple draft picks right, which is always fun. I
We've hit
think
on
I
a
still lead if we're doing tallied up. I think I still lead with the amount of hits, but I know
Shut
we've
up,
had more
Garrett.
hits, you know. So that's
We're getting
everyone's still coming for the mock draft warfare crown, I'd say. Although I think Tom had a hit last year, or was it Randy? I forget who had a hit last year.
No, Kyle and I had Gelati and he had Jalen Royals.
Oh, okay. Dang, that's pretty
We had
good.
multiple hits last year.
Yeah,
Yep.
so we're batting. We had a hot bat as far as mock draft warfare. So we hope you tune in for that and the other prospects that we got coming up. Two fun, I think probably the most fun positions, the edge rusher and secondary, are the two most anticipated ones coming up. So those will be good.
2 biggest
and,
areas of need. Yep.
yeah,
We're gonna have some
exactly.
I'm gonna have some hot takes tomorrow. I'm gonna have some hot takes tomorrow. People are not gonna like
Tomorrow.
it. But you know what?
Tomorrow.
Or not tomorrow. Next week.
Yeah,
I don't care.
yeah,
Next
Monday.
episode.
Easy. Jesus.
Exactly. So we're
Say,
gonna have
I'm not ready yet. I still got more guys to watch between now and Monday. You better
Well,
calm
I'm
down.
ready. We could stop recording this one and start recording next week's right now. I'm
I'd be
ready.
down for edge rusher.
I'm glad.
I'm not-
I cannot.
Edge rusher.
Can I'm going to bed.
I'm going to bed, yeah. All right, so we appreciate y'all for rocking with us. Be sure to tune in at Kingdom Says Pod, Facebook, X, and Instagram. Check us out over at YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcast at. We will be there, and we will see you guys next week for more prospect talk and a whole lot of more fun. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you guys in the next episode of the Kingdom Says.